The sky turned red without warning. The twin moons of Zelkara dimmed, as if they were ashamed to witness what was coming. The jungle trembled as ships broke through the clouds, roaring like angry beasts. Ailina, the scout of the Sicari tribe, raised her spear and called out to her sisters. "We are under attack," she shouted, though she already knew it was too late. The enemies were not from a nearby tribe. These ships had no tribal marks. Their design was sharp, black, and soulless. They did not come to steal land. They came to destroy everything. Ailina's heart beat faster, not from fear but from instinct. She knew what this meant. War during mating season was forbidden by the Sicari Code. But whoever these attackers were, they did not respect ancient laws. Her blood warmed and her senses sharpened. Her time was near, but now she had to fight instead of choose a mate. Laser fire cracked through the trees. Screams echoed from the forest. Sisters ran, some fought, others vanished in flames. Ailina moved like a shadow, fast and silent. Her golden skin reflected the firelight as she dodged behind a tree. Her fingers touched her neck, where the ritual band of her mating cycle pulsed with light. She cursed the timing. The band would soon glow brighter, and she would be forced to find a mate before her body broke down. But her tribe was dying, her people scattered. How could she complete the cycle now, when death rained from the sky? She leapt across the jungle floor, dragging a wounded sister to safety. Then she saw it. A single escape pod falling through the smoke, crashing deeper into the forest. It was not Sicari tech. It wasn't one of the attackers either. Curious, she crept toward it, gripping her spear tight. The pod hissed open, steam spilling into the air. A figure stepped out, tall, strange, wrapped in silver armor. The faceplate retracted and she saw him. Not a Sicari, not a rival alien. It was a human. She had never seen one before, only heard stories. They were rare in this part of the galaxy. His eyes scanned the jungle with caution, then locked onto hers. Ailina didn't move. Her instincts told her to run, but something deeper held her there. The human raised his hand slowly, trying to show he meant no harm. She noticed he was injured, bleeding from the side. Still, his stance was firm. A voice echoed in her head, an old tribal teaching. During mating season, if no mate is chosen, the nearest life form becomes fate's choice. She laughed bitterly. This could not be real. A human? Here? Now? But the band on her neck blinked faster, sensing the potential mate standing just meters away. She lowered her spear but did not speak. The human took one step closer, then fell to his knees. Pain surged through him, and he grabbed his side. Ailina hesitated, then knelt beside him. She smelled no poison, no lies, just pain, sweat, and blood. Her fingers brushed his chest and the band glowed brightly. Her breath caught. Fate had chosen. This human, this outsider, this strange wounded warrior was now part of her path. Her instincts screamed in confusion, but her body began to calm. The war above still roared, but something had changed deep inside her. Ailina dragged the human into a cave hidden behind thick vines. The forest still echoed with distant battles, but this place was quiet. Her hands moved quickly, breaking herbs and wrapping cloth over his wound. The human grunted in pain but did not resist. She had never touched a creature like him before. His skin was pale but strong, his muscles shaped by war, not ritual. A strange scent surrounded him, metal, smoke, and something warm she couldn't name. The band on her neck kept glowing, pulsing like a heart. The human finally spoke, his voice rough but calm. "Name's Jace," he said, pointing to himself. "Human, not here to fight you." Ailina stared, her face cold. She didn't know his language fully, but she understood enough. She nodded, then pointed at herself. "Ailina," she said firmly. Her voice was soft but steady. Jace gave a weak smile and tried to sit up. She pushed him back gently, shaking her head. He stayed down, his breathing heavy but steady. She stepped outside the cave for a moment and looked up. Smoke covered the sky. Her sisters were out there, dying or running, but her own body had different needs now. Her cycle was reaching its peak. If the band turned red, she would collapse within hours. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind. Why him? The forest gave no answer. When she turned back, Jace was sitting up again, holding a small device. He was trying to send a signal, but it was broken. His ship was gone. No help would come. She placed a hand on his wrist and shook her head. No signal, she said simply. War, all lost. Jace frowned but nodded. He finally realized how deep the danger was. They were alone in a burning world. She sat across from him and began preparing dried fruit and roasted roots. Jace watched, with hungry eyes. She handed him the food. He accepted it slowly, as if unsure it was real. But once he tasted it, he smiled again and nodded in thanks. The air in the cave grew heavy. Eilina could feel her skin heating, her pulse rising. The band blinked faster now. Jace noticed and tilted his head. That thing on your neck, he asked. What does it do? She hesitated, then touched it softly. Mating band, she said. Chooses mate. Time ends soon. Jace's eyes widened slightly. Then he looked down, unsure what to say. Eilina felt her stomach twist. She was a warrior, not a girl to blush, but this was different. This was nature, not choice. She stood up and paced the cave. Her body ached in strange ways. She tried to focus on war, on duty, on loss. But the band glowed, like fire now. Her hands trembled as she stared at the human, the chosen one, the only one nearby. He didn't move. He only watched her with calm eyes. Not like a conqueror, not like prey, just a being trying to survive, just like her. She hated that it made sense. She hated that the bond was forming so easily. But hate didn't stop it from happening. She walked to him and placed her hand on his chest again. No choice, she said softly. You are chosen. Jace looked at her not with fear but with respect. He placed his hand over hers slowly without force. For a long moment they said nothing. The world outside burned with war and flames. But inside that cave, something ancient was happening. Something that no one, not even the stars, could stop now, could stop. The night fell hard on the jungle. Bright stars blinked through the smoke above, but the ground stayed restless. Eilina stayed awake, sitting near the entrance of the cave. Her spear was close, but her thoughts were far. Jace lay behind her, asleep, but uneasy. He turned in his rest, sometimes whispering things she couldn't understand. His wounds were healing slowly, but he was still weak. Eilina didn't know what to make of him, yet her body had already made its choice. The band on her neck stopped blinking and now stayed a steady red. She felt its heat like a second heartbeat. It was not painful, but it was constant. It reminded her of time slipping away. Mating season would not pause for war. She stood and stepped into the jungle again. She moved like a shadow between the trees. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She needed water, food, and a moment of silence from her own thoughts. She needed to forget the human's steady breath behind her. A clear stream trickled between mossy rocks. She knelt beside it and drank deeply. The cool water helped for a moment. But then she heard footsteps. Light. Careful. She grabbed her spear and turned sharply. It was Jace. He limped toward her, hands raised. Didn't want to stay alone, he said softly. She sighed but didn't speak. He sat near the water, his legs stiff. For a few moments they just sat. The only sound was the stream between them. Jace picked up a flat rock and tossed it over the water. It skipped twice, then sank. Eilina watched him, curious. She had never seen anyone do that. He looked at her and smiled, then pointed. Try it, he said. She found a stone and copied his motion. It flew far but didn't skip. It dropped straight in with a splash. Jace chuckled gently and nodded. Good first try. She frowned, but felt the corner of her mouth lift slightly. The moment was strange but peaceful. The jungle crackled behind them. A loud snap. Elena rose quickly, spear ready. Jace stood slower, eyes alert. From the trees, 3 shadowy figures stepped out. Not Sicari, not human, but armored in black, weapons glowing blue. Enemies. They raised their guns. Elena didn't. Wait. She threw her spear, hitting the first one in the throat. Jace dove to the side as fire blasted the ground. Elena rolled, grabbed a fallen branch and knocked the second attacker's legs from under him. Jace tackled the last one, slamming his fist into the enemy's helmet. The mask cracked. The figure fell limp. Elena finished the second attacker, with a stone to the head. She stood breathing hard, eyes scanning for more. But the jungle was silent again. She looked at Jace. He was bleeding again, not badly, but enough to worry her. She moved to him and checked the wound. He winced but didn't pull away. "Thanks," he said, voice rough. She nodded, then wiped her hands on her leg. Back at the cave, she patched him up again. His blood was darker than hers, but it smelled of strength. He didn't speak much now. He just watched her with calm eyes. She tried not to meet them, but failed each time. They sat by the small fire, side by side. Elena stared into the flames. The band on her neck glowed with steady warmth. There was no turning back. The human was now part of her cycle. The jungle, the war, and her instincts had all agreed. The next morning came with a red sun and the smell of ash in the air. Elena stood outside the cave staring at the sky. Her tribe was gone, her people scattered. But she was still alive, and so was he. Jace stepped out behind her, slower than before. His wounds were healing, but his body still moved with caution. He looked at the burnt trees and smoke clouds, then looked at her. Neither of them spoke at first. She handed him a strip of dried meat. He took it with a nod, biting into it without question. They sat on a rock near the entrance, watching the jungle breathe. Birds called from far away. Somewhere a creature roared once, then fell silent. Elena turned to Jace. "We moved today," she said. "Too dangerous here." He didn't argue. He just nodded and stood. She could see he was stronger now. His steps were heavier, his hands more sure. The jungle had tested him, and he had survived. They packed what little they had. A pouch of food, a spear, a broken blade Jace had kept from one of the fallen enemies. He wrapped it in cloth and tied it to his back. Elena wrapped her band tighter, feeling its steady warmth. As they walked, the jungle opened like a mouth around them. Tall trees formed shadows that danced over their skin. They moved in silence, side by side. She could feel the bond growing. Between them, slow but strong. She didn't want to admit it, but her body was changing. The mating band didn't just glow now, it pulsed with need. Her heart beat faster every time he stepped close. It was not fear. It was something deeper, more dangerous. They reached an old temple carved into a cliff. Vines covered its walls and moss crept between its stones. Elena stopped and stared. "This is where the rite begins," she said. Jace looked at her with confusion. She pointed at the stone gate. "Ancient place," she said. "Chosen go. Here, before bonding." Jace looked uneasy but followed her up the steps. The air grew colder near the entrance. Elena lit a small torch and led him inside. The walls were covered in glowing patterns. The chamber opened into a large circle with a pool of clear water in the center. Above, a hole in the ceiling let in a single beam of sunlight. Elena stepped into the light and closed her eyes. Her skin shimmered under the glow. She turned to Jace and held out her hand. "To complete the bond," she said, "you must accept." Jace looked at her, then at the room, then back at her. He stepped forward and placed his hand in hers. The band, on her neck, glowed bright gold. A hum filled the room. The pool rippled without wind. Symbols lit up on the walls. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Her body felt light, like floating. She looked at Jace. He seemed just as stunned. The temple was reacting to them. He didn't speak. He only tightened his grip on her hand. She nodded once. The choice had been made. It was no longer just about instincts or survival. Something larger had accepted them now. Outside, the wind picked up and the jungle howled. But inside the temple, they stood still, locked together under the light. The temple walls dimmed slowly as the bond ritual ended. Aelina stepped back from the beam of light, her breathing calm but deep. Jace stood across from her, his eyes locked on hers. Neither spoke, but both knew something important had changed. They walked out of the temple and down the stone stairs. The jungle around them was quieter now, as if watching. Aelina's spear felt lighter in her hand. Jace looked stronger, steadier, as if the ritual had given him something he didn't understand. They followed a narrow path between thick vines. Aelina moved ahead, her senses sharp. She could feel the jungle reacting to their bond. The trees whispered. The wind shifted. Even the animals stayed hidden. Nature respected the ancient rite. Jace kept close behind her, his hand near his blade. He had not spoken much since the ritual. Something in him had changed. He felt tied to her now, not just by survival but by something deeper. A strange peace sat in his chest. They found a small hill that overlooked a valley. Aelina pointed below. Smoke rose from broken towers and shattered trees. That was a Sakari outpost, she said, now gone. Jace narrowed his eyes. He saw machines moving in the ruins. Enemy forces were there, gathering metal and parts. Some of them wore black armor with glowing blue lines. Others had no faces, only smooth masks and long weapons. Jace crouched beside her and whispered, "How many of them are there?" She counted quickly. Too many for two. Her voice was calm. She was not afraid. But she knew they needed a plan. She looked at Jace and saw the same thought forming behind his eyes. He had been a soldier once. It showed in his posture. "We strike small first," she said. "Cut supply, watch movement, then hit strong." Jace nodded. He pointed to a ridge on the far side of the valley. "That could hide us. Good for night attack." Aelina smiled faintly. She liked the way he thought. By nightfall they had crossed the valley's edge. They hid beneath wide roots and watched the camp. Enemy lights glowed faintly, but no one noticed the jungle breathing around them. Aelina moved without sound. Jace followed like a shadow. They reached the first tower, half burned and leaning. A power cell glowed at the base. Aelina placed a charge near it, using parts she had salvaged earlier. Jace covered her with the stolen rifle from the last ambush, the Siu. Blast came fast and bright. A tower fell and enemies shouted in confusion. Aelina and Jace vanished into the trees before anyone could trace the source. They moved fast like wind, cutting distance between each attack. By the third strike, the camp was in chaos. A ship tried to take off but crashed into a ridge. The enemies turned on each other in panic. Aelina watched with cold focus. Jace aimed and took out the last tower's signal dish. They didn't speak until they were far from the valley again. Smoke rose behind them, thick and dark. Aelina sat on a rock and wiped her blade clean. Jace sat beside her, sweat on his brow, but a calm look in his eyes. "You fight like a ghost," he said. Aelina tilted her head. "And you fight like fire," she replied. For a moment they shared silence. The bond between them now felt like steel, tested and unbroken. Above them the stars shifted. The night no longer felt empty. The war still burned across the planet, but now the forest had chosen its champions. The forest grew darker as they moved farther from the burning valley. The sky was covered in black clouds, thick with smoke from broken ships and dying trees. Aelina led the way with her spear ready, while Jace stayed behind her, silent and alert. Their path curved through steep hills and fallen branches. Each step made their bodies ache, but neither stopped. The jungle whispered warnings around them. The animals had fled. Even the wind was still. Something unnatural waited ahead. They stopped at a stone ridge. From there, they saw a crater glowing faintly in the earth. Inside it, a giant machine rested like a dead god. It was not from her world and not from Jace's either. It was something older, something forbidden. Aelina narrowed her eyes. "That is not ours," she said. "Not theirs either." Jace stared at the strange craft, its body cracked and covered in strange symbols. "What is it?" he asked. Aelina stepped down the hill slowly and replied, "Ancient weapon," she said, "from before memory. My tribe was told never to touch it." Jace followed carefully. The air around the crater felt heavy. Each breath was harder than the last. The machine was asleep, but not silent. They reached the edge of the crater and crouched behind a rock. Strange lights blinked inside the broken hull. A sound pulsed, low and deep. Aelina could feel it in her bones. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "This could end everything," he said, "or start something worse." She nodded slowly. Her mating band flickered again, reacting to the power nearby. It was sensing more than biology now. It was sensing danger. A shape moved near the far side of the crater. 2 enemy scouts were examining the ruins. Their black armor reflected the faint light. They were scanning the machine and marking symbols on a screen. They had no idea Aelina and Jace were near. "We stopped them," Aelina said. "If they awaken it, all life burns." Jace didn't argue. They moved down silently, using the broken metal for cover. Each step was measured. Every breath was quiet. Then they struck. Aelina threw her spear. It pierced the first scout's chest, knocking him backward. Jace shot the second in the leg, then rushed forward and tackled him to the ground. The fight ended fast. No sound remained but the strange humming of the ancient ship. Jace studied the console. They were trying to connect something, he said. Maybe signal it. Aelina grabbed the device and crushed it underfoot. "No signal," she said firmly. "Not again." She looked at the machine. "We bury it." They worked fast, covering it with broken rocks and dust. It wouldn't stop it forever, but it would hide it from those who searched. As they finished, the ground shook slightly. The hum faded but did not stop. Aelina frowned. "This place is wrong," she said. "We leave now." Jace agreed. They turned their backs on the sleeping weapon and walked away without speaking. The forest slowly began to sound alive again. Crickets chirped. Birds called from far trees. Back at their small camp, they sat by a quiet fire. Aelina looked at Jace and asked, "Why did you come here? Your ship? This planet? Why?" Jace stared into the flames and answered, "Looking for peace," he said. "Ran from war, crashed instead." Aelina nodded. "Now we fight again." Jace looked at her, his voice calm. But this time, not alone. She didn't answer. She only stared at the fire, feeling the warmth and the truth of his words. The night brought cold air and a pale moon that hung low over the jungle. Aelina sat beside the fire, sharpening her spear slowly. The sound of stone scraping metal was steady. Her eyes stayed on the flames, but her mind was far away. Jace returned from his watch and sat beside her. His face was tired but calm. He placed a small bag of dried berries between them. "Found these on the ridge," he said. Aelina picked one and tasted it. Sweet but sharp. Like home, they ate in silence. Around them, the jungle whispered and moved. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled over the mountains. Aelina leaned her head back and stared at the stars. "Storm coming," she said. "Sky is warning us." Jace followed her gaze. "The enemies won't stop," he said. "They'll keep digging, keep hunting." Aelina nodded. Her spear rested across her knees. The band on her neck glowed again, but now it pulsed slow and steady like a rhythm, matching her breath. "I can feel the end of the cycle," she whispered. "Soon the bond completes." Jace looked at her carefully. "What happens then?" he asked. Aelina turned toward him. "We become one, Not just spirit, body too. Her voice was calm. Jace didn't respond right away. He looked at the fire, then at her. "Is it what you want?" he asked. Alina stared into the night. Her tribe would have forced it. The law made it sacred. But now, without her people, it was her choice. She leaned closer, placing her hand over his. "I did not choose you," she said, "but I do not reject you." Jace held her gaze, his eyes serious. "Then we face it together," he said. "No fear, no regret." Her fingers curled around his. A shadow moved in the trees. Alina stood instantly, spear raised. Jace followed, rifle aimed. From the bushes stepped a Sikari warrior, bloodied and limping. Alina ran to her. "Sister," she cried, "you live." The warrior collapsed into her arms. "Queen captured," the warrior gasped. "They have her. Ritual chamber. Taken by them." Her voice broke and she fainted. Jace helped Alina carry her to the fire. Alina's face was dark with rage. "Their leader wants control," she said. "If he forces the queen into a bond, he claims our tribe." Jace stood and checked his weapon. "Then we take her back." Alina met his eyes. "They will be many." Jace didn't blink. "Then will be enough," he said. His words were calm, but his voice was steel. Alina placed her hand on his shoulder. The mating band glowed bright gold again, responding to unity and purpose. Her heart beat stronger than before. They prepared for the final march. Alina painted her face with ash and oil. Jace tightened the armor he had built from enemy pieces. Together they looked like two forces made from different worlds but bound by one fire. Before they left, Alina looked at him once more. "If we fall," she said, "let it be together." Jace nodded, his voice low and sure. "Together, always." She smiled softly, then turned to the trees. Her spear gleamed in the firelight. The jungle opened its path for them. The stars above watched silently, and deep within the forest, the enemy prepared for a ritual they believed would make them kings. The jungle was silent as Alina and Jace moved through the trees. The stars were hidden by clouds now, and the wind carried the scent of fire and blood. The ground was soft beneath their feet, but their steps were firm. They reached the outer walls of the enemy camp before dawn. Watchtowers glowed with blue light. Soldiers in black armor moved in patterns, unaware of what was coming. Alina scanned the guards and counted them with sharp eyes. "There," she said, pointing to a tall stone structure in the center. "The queen is inside. The ritual starts with the sun." Jace nodded and checked the weapon he had rebuilt from broken pieces. "We end this before that," he replied. They waited for a patrol to pass, then slipped through the shadows. Alina took down one guard with her blade. Jace knocked another out with the butt of his rifle. They moved fast, like a storm hiding in silence. Inside the chamber, the queen was bound in golden chains. She sat on her knees, her face calm but her eyes burning with hate. Around her, enemies chanted and prepared the bonding ritual. One of them stepped forward, holding a glowing staff. He raised the staff and said words in a language neither Alina nor Jace understood. But they knew the meaning. He was claiming her by force. Alina stepped into the light with her spear raised. "No," she said. "This ends now." The room exploded into motion. Jace fired first, dropping the staff bearer. Alina threw her spear, striking the nearest guard in the chest. The queen used the chaos to shatter her chains with a hidden blade. She stood and joined the fight. They fought back to back. Alina's movements were fast and sharp. Jace covered her with fire from the left, his shots precise and deadly. The queen struck down two guards with her bare hands. The enemies tried to regroup but failed. One of the leaders tried to escape. Jace chased him into the hall and tackled him to the ground. "No more running," he said before ending it. When he returned, the chamber was still. Only the three of them remained. The Queen walked to Elena and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've honored the tribe," she said. "You chose well." Elena looked at Jace. "I did not choose," she replied. "The bond chose us." The Queen smiled. Outside, the jungle began to glow with morning light. Birds returned to the sky. The air smelled of smoke, but also of freedom. A new day had started, and with it, a new path for their people. Elena stood beside Jace at the edge of the ridge. The war had not ended, but the heart of it had been struck. The enemy's plan was broken. The tribe would rise again, and she was no longer alone. Jace looked at the mating band on her neck. It no longer pulsed with warning. Now it glowed with peace. "What now?" he asked. Elena turned to him with calm eyes and said, "Now we build. Now we begin." She touched his hand and held it tightly. The jungle wind passed through them, soft and warm. The stars faded above as the sun rose behind the trees. Their bond had been born in fire and fear, but it stood strong in the light. Human and Sikari, warrior and wanderer. Two lives made one by war and sealed by choice.